Hello everybody and welcome back to today's tutorial on how to install an Active Directory server using Samba on Debian 10. In my previous video I showed you how to install Debian 10 from scratch in your VMware Workstation, and today we're going to actually show you how to connect your Debian 10 Active Directory server to your Windows client. I'm not going to do the Linux one today. It's just going to take too long to do both of them in that, so I'll do another video later. But mainly this video is just going to show you if you're in a company, you installed a Linux server, now you have to figure out how to get everything all connected to each other, and this is going to do it. We mainly use Samba. Over the years I changed everything up to make Samba work with it. As you can see here, Samba actually has their own wiki page on how to set up Active Directory domain controller, depending on which version of whichever distro, of Linux you're using, whether it's Debian, Ubuntu, so on. They all have their different ways of provisioning it and setting everything up here. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to kind of skip all this. This will be down in the description below, so you can go ahead and figure out how to do this if you want to do this on a different version. So what we're going to use today is SSH. Normally I do everything inside the actual VM, but today I'm going to do something a little bit different. Most people are going to start doing a lot once their server's installed. They're not going to be at their server doing the installs. They're actually going to do it through SSH. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do here for you, is show you how to SSH into it and how to go from there. But if you just installed your Debian 10, you're going to notice that, as you can see here, no full screen, things are acting a little weird, it's not really the best. That's because we got to install OpenVM tools. So if you're doing a live environment, this step is actually not for you, but this is more for our VM installers. So first things first, okay, I'm logged in as root. If you're logged in as anything else, you just have to make sure you type in the word sudo sudo app install OpenVM tools. Press Y to install, and after a few minutes it should go ahead and correct your video and everything else that they need. So there we go. So it makes this a little bit nicer. Now the tiling of here, don't worry about it. It's just a thing that they do with the wallpapers. If you change the wallpaper, it fixes it. It's just a resolution thing with it. Okay, so now we got that installed. The next thing we have to do is static the system here. You have two ways of doing that. In my little guide here, we do it through Nano, which is a text editor, through the interfaces text. And what it does here is we have to add all this into the actual text. So if you're using a GUI, life's a little bit easier. We go over here to the network, edit connections, wire connection, and then we go to IPv4 and set everything up here, which only takes a matter of seconds instead of having to go, as I'll show you through here. So nano etc network interface. Okay, so now we're here. And then from here, I will have to go ahead and type everything you see right here into here and save it. I feel that because I have a GUI installed, it's much simpler just to go ahead and do it this way. So depending on which installation you have of Debian, whether it's a command line interface or a GUI, you have your two options of doing it. But if you do have a command line, this will go ahead and work. Just got to make sure you restart your network adapter at the end. Or some people just like to reboot. So I'm going to go here and set mine up already. So I go to manual. Actually, let me just maximize the screen real quickly. So manual. Now the IP address that I chose is 192.168.3.10. Now my net mask, you can type in the full number of your net mask, or the nice thing as well, the bit rate. So mine will be 24 or 255.255.255.0. And then now it's time to type in our gateway. All right, so now we get down to our DNS servers and search domain. All right. Now these again will be a little bit different for everybody, but what I like to do is I like to do two things. The first DNS server, I like to point directly back to us. So 192.168.3.10. You can do 127.0.0.1. I usually don't like to use that just in case of any kind of issues. I usually point it directly back with the IP address that we're going to static. Then we put a comma there, and then I like to do our gateway because I know our gateway DNS is going to work. It's connected to the outside world. Everything's going to see it fine. You can also do like Google if you want, or Cloudflare at 8.8.8.8 or 1.1.1.1. Sometimes people like to do this for testing purposes, so they'll just put their gateway and then their external one. But if you're in an actual company, most companies don't want you connecting to an outside domain, or DNS service. They kind of want you to keep everything local. So in the sense being, you have to have two DNS servers. So usually what I do is I create my local and then my router. And on my router, I'm actually using a pfSense style router here with specialized DNSs and everything else that aren't connected outside. So that would be that. Otherwise, you may have to like say 192.168.3.11 for your second DNS server or something like that. Because usually you should have two domain controllers as well on your system for failover. Okay, so now we're going to go to search domains, and my domain is Debian svr.local. Yours can be different. This is whatever your domain is going to be. By default, it's Debian.local. But if you're going to say a company, this is the place where the company would write google.com, we'll say. Or in my case, VMwareAdvisor.com. And my whole entire structure will be DC01 because that's the host name of the server we're designing at VMwareAdvisor.com. So when it's searching for domains, it's looking for this domain, the VMwareAdvisor.com, your Debian server.local, your Debian.local. So it just resolves all the host names. This is how the DNS is going to figure out when you type in VMware.com or DC01.VMware.com, it's going to know where to go. But for this server, it's Debian server.local. Okay, and that's everything we need here for this connection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, just disable it, and then re-enable it. All right, so then we look at connection information. As you can see here, our IP address is what we set it for. Everything here is correct, and that took only a few minutes. Honestly, without my dialogue, more than likely a few seconds, but hey, it is what it is. So now it's time to go ahead and set up our SSH. Now, you have two ways of doing it. Most people are going to want to download something like PuTTY, an SSH server. But there's a very good chance that you're probably not going to use the other version, which is through the VMware Workstation. VMware Workstation actually has a built-in SSH. So if you have Workstation installed and you want to connect to an ESXi server or something like that, and SSH is enabled, you can connect to SSH via here. So example. And there we go. Oh, as it says, my key is broken, which is fine. Because I actually broke the key a couple times already doing this. So, but most likely you're going to be logging in through a PuTTY type scenario. So as you can see here, and there we go. So now I'm logged in directly into this virtual server. Now this works on any server. This is actually a really good tool to have. You should change the default port to something else to stop any kind of intrusions or pen testing, vulnerability attacks, whatever it may be. But for this tutorial, we're leaving everything as default to make it simple. If you have not installed SSH, here is a quick little setup on how to do it. Mainly, you're pretty much just going to just do an update, and then you're going to just install OpenSSH server, and that is it. You can go ahead and type in this to see if it's actually running in the background, and if it's not, you would type in this. But every time I've ever installed SSH, it automatically starts and runs. Now, if you're only using SSH right now just for testing purposes and don't want to have it enabled all the time, I do recommend stopping the service and then going to disable the service and only use it when you need to. That's up to you. In some instances, it might be blocked by your firewall, and if it is, this is the quick command to allow SSH through your firewall. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, let's actually get to the installation of our Active Directory server. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open up PuTTY. I'm going to ping it to that side, open up my notepad, and then put our notepad over here. Alright, so the first things first, I want to run as root. So sudo su. As you can see here, I am not a actual sudoer. Now, if you did a brand new install for any form of Debian, root is the only sudo available at the time. Nobody else is. Here's the other downfall. Root cannot SSH. They have that disabled. So, easy workaround. Go back to our Debian server. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our Debian server, open up terminal, and type in usermod, tac lowercase a, capital G, sudo, and then the name of the user we want to add. And that's it. Now what I like to do is I like to log out. Log into our new sudo account. And then I like just to verify that we actually are sudo. If you type in sudo who am I and you get the exactly what you see on my screen here, you are now sudo. And we are all ready to go to do our installation. So I'm just going to log out of here. I'm going to log back in the root. You don't have to do this. I just like to just stay in root in case there's any kind of problems. So here. So let's try it again. Alright, so now we went back over here and it's still giving us the same problem. It's because that we have to actually log out of our PuTTY and re-log back in. So I'm going to go ahead, click on new session. Alright, I have my Debian already saved. Open. Yes, I want to close that. Okay. VM advisor and password. Okay. So now sudo su, and as you can see, it's working now. Okay, so we hit Control L, and now we'll go ahead and empty out our screen so we can get back to the way we were. All right, so we went ahead, we created a sudo user, as we see here. Okay, we've already staticked our IP addresses here according to this. If you have not done this, you're more than welcome to do this now. Just pause the video, set up the way you have to set it up here, and then you just come on back, and then make sure you restart your network adapter. If you're going to do this through SSH, which you can, as we'll see here, I'll give you a quick idea. So nano etc, I can spell network right, interface. Okay, so I can go down to here, and I have all this all ready to go. Boom. You may have to do a little bit of fixing with it, but for the most part, everything's ready to go. Alright, so if you want to go ahead, oops, delete. There we go. So this is all ready to go. It knows it's static, it's ready, and it's good to go, and we're good. But if you do this, you're going to end up losing, obviously, your connection to your SSH and have to redo it back in. So I recommend doing this before you get to the SSH part of our actual tutorial. So next thing is next, we got to figure out what our host name is. Now, if we want to know just the basic information, we type in uname tac a. And as you can see here, DC01. That is exactly the name of my server. Yours could possibly be something different. All right, we need to make sure we take note of that because that's what we're going to need for later when we set up our DC. I recommend most people to set up their domain controllers similar to something like this: DC01, DC1, DCA, DCB, DC2, whatever, so that when somebody looks at it, they go, that's the domain controller, perfect. Oh, that's the master in the domain controller. You know, DC2 is a secondary that came along later, perfect. You know, it just makes life easier. But if you want to call it Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're more than welcome to. Nobody's stopping you. This is your lab, this is your environment, have fun. Now, say you didn't like the host name that you chose, or the host name is default. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to actually just quickly change it. So as you can see, mine's DC01. I did not want a DC01, I just wanted DC1. So I would type in hostname CTL space set dash hostname, and then just type in the hostname I want. Okay, uname TAC A, and as you can see, it has changed. So I'm going to go back to the way it was. You can also type in hostname CTL. And you can see here, it gives you a much more detailed setup of what everything is. So if you're not very familiar with what you have, this is actually kind of like, if you're in Windows, it's kind of like the system setting, where it kind of gives you the idea, this is the computer name, the host name, you know, if it's on a virtual, the operating system, the kernel that they're currently running on, architect, so on and so forth. A little more information in case you need to know this because you're not sure. Say you don't know what kind of Debian you're on. Say you think you might be on 10, but you really are on 9. Typing this will actually bring you to there. Okay, so we figured out what we want, and now we want to know our entire setup here. So hostname TAC F. Alright, so the way mine's set up is my hostname is DC01. And my domain is debianserver.local. Yours, again, could be different. If I just want to know the domain, I would type in hostname TAC D. So to give you a better idea, so in here, it kind of brings up everything here for you. If you want to know your domain, if you want to know your full FQDN name, which is what we saw before, which is dc01.debianserver.local. If you're looking for the short name, if you're looking just for the IP address of the host, so again, host name, TAC I. As of right now, it shows you the loopback of 127.0.1.1. If you're looking for the actual IP address, IPA. As you can see here, I'm using ENS333, and my INET is this. All right. So we figured all this stuff out. We're ready to go here. All right, so now it's time to go ahead and down to our DNS resolve and our host name resolving. You can do this later on, but I just rather do it now because it just makes life a little bit easier. So first things first, we're going to type in nano/etc/resolve.com. Okay. Now, as you can see here, it's already generated because we went ahead and did this previously in our network setup. So when we staticed everything, it automatically copied it over here. If yours says anything different, I recommend changing it to be something similar to mine. So your search should be your domain. Always should be your domain. And your name server 1 should be the computer we're on now, and name server 2 should be your router. You may see search as blank or search as like Debian, and then the name server will be 127.0.0.1. Again, I would change it to look something like this. And over here in my notes, I'll go ahead and change it to DC server. So I'm just with DC01 because that's what it's supposed to be, and router. And then here should be domain. So that we know in the future, whoever's watching the video here and looking at the notes, you'll actually see exactly what we're talking about here. Let me just make it a little bit easier for you to read. There you go. So as of right now, everything is the way I need it to be. Now we have to edit our host file. So Nano, etc host. Now there are also VI, Vim, and there's other different programs to actually do it. Cat will do it as well. It's up to you how you want to do it. So now we see here that we have our default host. Now localhost should never be changed. Okay, but see this, we have to actually change this. So what we're going to do is we're going to name it 192.168.3.10, the name of my actual my static IP I picked for this server. And next to it, it has its full FQDN name. So dco1.debianserver.local. It could also be dco1. Now, also what I do here is I always like to capitalize it. Just because with Kerberos, it's a little bit weird with it. I haven't had any problems with it being lowercase or not, but I've actually always just been like, you know what, just capitalize it, and I've never had a problem with it. So we press Control X, Y to save it, press Enter, and then we're good. Now if we go back to hostname tac I, oops. As you can see here, we now have our IP address that's correct in our host. So now we know that's actually looking at the right settings. Now let's do some pinging. So we got to make sure we still have the proper connectivity for everything. So first thing is first, we're going to ping our router. Okay, we're going to ping an outside DNS. And then we're going to go ahead and ping a actual name, so google.com. And as you can see here, it is all working. Beautiful. I like this. So next thing's next. Got to do some updates. So apt-get update, tac for our ampersands. Alright, so what this script here says is that you're going to do the application get updates, and then the two little ampersand signs here, what they're actually doing is they're saying, I want to do this and then do this. So it's going to find all the updates and then it's going to jump right into the upgrade. And then the tac Y here specifies that we're going to actually do the install for it. So instead of asking me, do you want to continue, yes or no, I want to continue. The tac Y is completely optional for most people. Okay, so it went ahead and looked. It found absolutely nothing. It's not required to do any updates or any upgrades. Everything is there it needs to, which is perfect because this is actually very close to when Debian released their Debian 10 when I made this video. So there shouldn't be much to be installed since that because they pretty much give you everything you need on the CD at the moment. Okay, so now it's time to install all the extra packages. Now these packages are all required for Samba, the Kerberos, Winbind, and everything else to run properly. So we're just going to copy and paste. And as you can see here, because I didn't specify the tac Y, it's asking me down here, do I want to continue? Press Y, enter, and then you're going to let this run. If you get any errors involved here, I would recommend reading it, but if you've done everything that I've done so far in these steps, you should not receive any errors at all. You may get like what we call a CD error, and while this is doing this, I think I should be able to get into it. No, I can't. I gotta wait till this is over. If you go under System, Administration, and Semantic Package Manager, inside there under Repositories, they'll actually have CD checked off and everything. And sometimes having that checked will actually cause a few errors. So when this is actually done, I will go ahead and show you how my packages are set up under the Semantic Package Manager. So that if you do get any errors, you can just copy what I have and you should be good to go from there. Okay, so all our packages have been installed, or pre-required packages. So if we go back to our Debian server here, now like I said, if you get any kind of errors through it, I would recommend just going here, maximize the screen for everybody. Go up to Settings, Repositories, okay, and then you can go ahead and copy what I have written on here. So normally you'll probably have this automatically checked. I have that turned off. Mainly because I actually don't go into the CD very often to get anything. It's already been done, it's already there. You know, I already added anything I needed from the previous installs, so I don't need that turned on. But sometimes this actually will give you an error, make your system freak out a little bit. So if you get any errors, I would go in, turn that off, and then try everything all over again. So now we have to install our Samba, our Kerberos, and Winbind, and SMB client. So copy and paste, put that in. Now here you're going to be asked a few questions when setting up your Kerberos. All right, first question is your DHCP server? Now this is more than likely probably not going to be your DHCP server. If it is, I would recommend hitting no. But in my case, and in what the case we're doing is we're actually going to let pfSense, my firewall, handle all the DHCP information. This is just going to be a domain control that's going to handle the domain and Active Directory, and part of the DNS as well for it. So for this situation, I have to hit yes. What this is going to do is actually going to let everything know about my WinBIOS for the name servers and with the DHCP server for my pfSense, and configure it with my SMB configuration. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hit yes for this. Again, depending on your situation, you may hit no, but for most people, you're probably going to hit yes if you've been following along in all my videos. Okay, so now we got to set up our Kerberos. Now, as you can see here, I went ahead and these are the 3 questions it's going to ask you, and these are the actual answers for most people, or at least how they should be set up. Your default Kerberos version 5 realm has to be your domain. So your full domain, which in mine is debianserver.local, and it has to be capitalized. If it's not capitalized, you will be getting errors later, and then you're not going to understand why, and you're going to freak out and everything. So make sure it's capital. The next one is for the host name of this situation. Now, I've been told DC01 is good enough. I've done debianserver.local. I've done it all. So I guess it's really up to you. I always do the full name. If you don't do the full name, it's probably okay. But I've had some errors in the past where if I didn't do the full actual FQDN name for this, it actually didn't work for me. I don't know if anybody else has ever had the same problems. So it's up to you. You can either do just the host name, which is in our case DC01, or you can do the actual full like I do. Now, there are also more than likely in here some of my commands, as you can see, might be different than some other people's. Everybody's got their preference. That's the one thing that's nice about Linux, is that there's so many different ways you can actually do it. But it does get a little irritating because some person does it with one command, another person does it with another command, and everybody gets confused. So the way I'm doing it on here has worked out best for me and worked out best for my scenario. But it may be, you might think that, like for example, the next one we're about to do is I'm going to make a copy of our SMB config and rename it to smbconfig.org while still keeping the SMB config file. And then the next one I'm going to remove it. Now you can go ahead and change that by just making the CP MV, and that's going to end up changing the SMB config to smbconfig.org. So I do know that some of my stuff here is a little bit different, but I've never had a problem doing it this way, and I've been doing a few Debian servers, doing installs for Active Directory, and never had a problem yet doing it this way. So for me, I've never had an issue. I'm not going to bother changing it. Okay, So now it's time to set up our Samba tools domain provision. So we're going to go ahead, copy and paste that exactly in there, and hit enter. Now again, you're going to be questioned with these questions. It is up to you on how you want to set them up. So I'm going to make this a full screen for the moment. So down here at the bottom, you're going to have realm. Usually all the defaults are going to be correct if you followed along and set everything up the way you're supposed to set up in the video. So it should be able to figure out what your realm is, what your domain is, it's the DC server, your DNS, it should figure out just about everything. So in my case, the realm will be Debian server.local. So default, press enter. The domain, it's registering as Debian server, that is correct, so I'm going to press enter. If anything is incorrect, make sure you type it in and change it. So this one, it's asking me what kind of server. Is it a DC? Is it a member? Is it a standalone? It is fully aware it's a DC server, but if you want it to be a standalone server that's not connected with DC or member, you can. But in our video, we're making it a DC. So press enter. Now your DNS backend, you have a few choices here. I leave it as Samba internal. I have never had a problem using Samba internal, but if you want to use by9, you can. It is a preference up all to you, as long as you know how to configure your Samba internals, your by9, and whatever you choose. So now we have a DNS forwarder IP address. So right now it's set for our internal or our local DHCP, which is the static we created before. I like to also make this forwarder go to my pfSense router. And the reason for that is because my pfSense router has a DNS forwarder and resolver built in that works for anything else. So if the DNS isn't working here, it knows how to resolve it and forward it outside. You can put 192.168.3.254, which is my router. Or if you want, you can use Cloudflare or Google at 8.8.8.8 or 1.1.1.1. It's all up to you. As long as you know that if you use any of those external ones, it's leaving your building and going somewhere else. Your admin password. As you can see here, my admin password is going to be this. I don't recommend anybody using this as an admin password because it's not a very secure password. But you do have to meet requirements. It has to have a special character. It has to have letters, numbers, a capital letter at least, and it has to be more than 8 characters. So this actually works just fine in this video. I do not recommend you, again, using this video this password in your actual live environment. Type it back in again. And there we go. So we're going to let this run. And there you go. So if you're greeted with this down here below, we are all ready to go. It's letting you know that it's already set up the Active Directory domain controller, the host name is DC01, the Debian servers are NetBIOS, capital, our DNS domains, Debian server local, and the domain SSID, which is used for the actual Linux side of everything. So in this case here, we are all good to go with the actual provisioning and creating, but the actual active domain is not up and running yet. So let's go back and make that half screen. Okay, so now we got to do a few things. We got to copy the KRB file. Now, you don't have to copy your old KRB file. I like to just in case there's a problem. So same thing here. I'm using CP instead of MV. It's a preference, all up to you. So again, we're going to copy our KRB5 config file that was created using Samba. As you can see here, a Kerberos configuration suitable for the AD has been generated at this blah 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 location. There you go, make it easier for everybody to see. So we have to copy this into where our default Kerberos file is, which is etc. That didn't work out very well. Okay. So here, oops, I went ahead and copied that by accident. All right, so cp /var /lib /samba private krb5 config /etc, which is going to copy the krb file that tells me to copy from Samba over to the default location. Okay. Always got to be a little bit of a pain now, doesn't it? Okay. So now we want to take a look at our krb5 config file. So nano /etc krb5 config, and yours should look very similar to mine. Default realm should be the only thing that's different. Now there are other things you can add to this, but that's only if you're having errors or problems with your DNS. I've never had a problem. I usually leave it like this. I only change the KRB file if it needs to be. So example, as you can see here, our krb5config.org, the copy we made before, has a lot more involved here, explaining a few more things and how to get to certain places or adding things if you need to change it. I don't need any of this stuff. So because I don't need any of this stuff in here, there's no reason for me to actually have all this extra. So as long as your Kerberos file actually goes ahead and looks similar to mine, so DNS lookup realm is false and DNS lookup KDC is true, and then your default realm is in capital, what your domain actually is, so mine's Debian server.local, you should be good to go. So Control L, let's start back to the top here. So first things first, we can go ahead and stop all the information. So system control, stop, we need to stop SMBD, NMBD, and WinBind. And then I want to go ahead and to disable them so they don't have them just starting up whenever we don't need them. Now we have to enable our Active Directory. Now by default it's masked. And masked just means that it can't actually run or be tampered with without somebody actually approving it right away. So right now your Active Directory will never run until you unmask it. There we go. So now the mask has been removed. So now we're able to actually go ahead and fiddle with it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit start it. So same thing with start. And then we're going to go ahead and enable it. So that every time the system turns on and runs, it will go ahead and enable our Active Directory. Now we got to test our SMB client. Okay, now if your SMB client should look very similar to mine. The shareware for net login, sysvolume, IPC should be listed up there. You should be using Samba 4. Whatever. At this point here it's 4.9. You may down the road see 4.10 or 4.12. I don't know. But at the time of the video it was 4.9.5. And then your work group should have the word DC01 letting you know under master what it is. Perfect. Now the next thing we got to do is we got to show our domain level. So Samba-tool, space domain, level, show, hit enter, and there we go. So you should be prompted with this. If you do not see this, that means you've had some error, and I would go ahead and re-provision your domain again from our previous workaround up here using this. Go back to Samba tools and re-provision your domain to make sure that this is actually saying what it's saying. If you're still not getting that, maybe you did not unmask your Active Directory or you didn't start your AD service. If you do not see your Windows 2008 R2 forest and domain level, you did not do something right. Okay, now we got to verify our Kerberos and DNS is working. Okay, so as we can see here, it is picking up a record for DC01 as we type that in. And the same thing with this, looking pretty good. Now if I type in NS lookup DC01, I should be prompted with, as you see here. If you do not get this, if you get an NX domain error or some kind of error is involved, that means your DNS and your Kerberos is not functioning properly. It means you set up your DNS wrong. Unfortunately, there's way too much to go through on how to set it up. So if you get an error when setting up your Kerberos, if I can find it in here, or verifying your DNS, I would go here to troubleshooting. So if you're not getting these answers back from your LDAP, your Kerberos, and the rest of them, there's a problem. And actually, we'll go ahead and do this one as well. So I'll copy that. Space. I'm just going to go ahead and modify this real quickly while we're here. DC01 Debian server.local. And this should work. I've actually never ran this before, but it should technically still work if we'd set everything up properly. And it does. As you can see here, it's letting me know that my DC01 Debian server is a static, or has an address, not a static, of 192.168.3.10. Again, my DNS is working properly and my Kerberos is working properly. So the next thing we're going to have to type in kinit administrator. Now it's asking for our administrator at Debian server at local. Now as you notice, I didn't type in administrator at Debian server.local. I want the Kerberos and the DNS to figure out what administrator I want with using the INIT structure. So from here, I'm going to type in the password we created earlier. And there we go. So now it's letting me know that my password will expire in 41 days, the time and date that it will do this. I'm going to show you how to turn that off, because if you don't remember to change your password every 41 days, it will lock you out and you have to go ahead and restart all this process over again to unlock the administrator. Unless you went ahead and created a new administrator account. So this is kind of up to you and how you do it. But this command right here is letting us know, okay, that the user administrator for the set expiry is not to expire ever. So there you go. Expiry for user administrator is disabled. So if I go back and test it again, it should let me know nothing. That's letting me know that there is no ending password for it and that everything is okay. If you get any other errors here, again, you're not set up correctly. I would recommend going back and diagnosing your problem. Now here's another issue too. I don't recommend using this in a real world environment, but some people get really finicky about it or upset that we don't do this and yada yada yada. So it is what it is. So we have the Samba tools domain password settings, complexity off. Complexity means you must add capital letters, lowercase letters, numbers, special characters, the whole 9 yards. Got to be more than, I think, 8 characters or 12 characters. I don't remember the actual number specified with it. So some people get really irritated because they want to do this. So this allows you to create the actual user as password if you want to make the password. I don't recommend turning this off, but some people do. So for our video here, I'm going to show you how to turn it off if you would like to. There you go. So the password complexity is deactivated, all changes applied, everything's good to go. If you want to turn it back on, you would just type in, just change the word off to on. There you go. Again, I don't recommend anybody turning it off, in a real world environment. So now we got to create the user folder. So we're almost done. Pretty simple to create user folders. Is we're just going to create a folder for all our users that go into there for any kind of file sharing. So make directory 770 is the permission base and users. Okay, then we're going to do our change modifications to G+S for users, and the owner is we're going to change the owner from root to users. Now we have to go ahead and edit our SMB config file that we deleted and created technically later. So etc samba smb config, hit enter. Now, everything in here is automatically default. Leave this all alone. You don't need to touch any of this stuff unless there's a problem for some reason, which I don't see there being a problem anywhere. And then what we're going to do is go down to the bottom, and you can go ahead and copy and paste everything you see here right there. Okay, and what this is doing is it's creating a directory, letting people know that it's not a read-only, that who has, what capabilities to it, and so on. This is just letting Samba and Windows know what to do. So Control X to save it. And now we have to create a new user. So Samba Tools, user create, and just type in the user you want to create. Hit enter, and now it's going to ask you for a password. Now we're all good. So what this is doing here is it's letting me know that, so when I go to log in, this is kind of like the part where, like, if you're Windows, you're creating the actual users. Because you don't want people logging in as administrator, obviously. You want people to have their own user account to log in. And this is where we're creating the user accounts. Okay, so technically we're all done doing, as you can see here. Now we have to go ahead and connect our Windows to it. So I'm going to go back here. Now I have my dual boot operating system. This has Linux Mint and Windows 10 built into it. If you want to know how to do this, watch my previous video on how to do this. It's a little bit of a nice thing to have. As you can see, I have my Linux Mint and my Windows on here dual booting. Now this is a fresh copy of Windows 10 Enterprise 1809, I think it is. One of those numbers. This will work obviously with Pro and above. This will not work with Home. If you have Windows Home, it can't connect to domains, so you're kind of defeating the purpose of what you're doing. Okay. Going to go ahead and type in the password to get in. So I added a few things here, and this is actually what we're going to need later to install, because you can't actually, I mean you can, but it's a little bit more of a pain to run your server and everything from here, trying to remember all the commands and everything here, where if you install your RSAT, which is Remote Systems Administrator Tools, what they will do is they'll install an Active Directory on the computer and everything, so I can remote into that server and go ahead and do what I have to do. So first things first, we're going to have to go ahead and change our DNS on our Ethernet or your internet connection. So Ethernet, down here, we have to make it the DNS of our actual server. So it has to point to our domain server. Okay, now just to test it, CMD. Looking pretty good. Okay, now we're going to connect it. So settings, system, go to about. Now down here at the bottom it says system info. We'll click on that. Brings up our, obviously you see here, it's Windows 10 Enterprise, computer name, everything. So we're going to click change settings here. Click on change, domain, Debian server.local, and you should be prompted with this screen here. If you're not, if you get an NX domain error or some kind of error with it, again, your DNS is not working properly and you're going to need to fix that. Log in as an administrator to authorize this with the administrator password that we created. So as you can see here, it's the one we created when we did the domain provisioning. Hit OK. And if everything's good, as you can see, we are now at the Debian server.local. hit restart now. And then what this is going to do now is going to reboot the system, and we're able to now log in through our system the same exact way we have that. And again, everything here will be in the description below for everybody. So the guide that I have written out that we've been following along will be down there for you. The PowerShell software that we were using in here is going to be there for you to install your RSAT tools. Again, if you're not using 1809 and above, the RSAT tools that I'm using in this video aren't going to work for you. So while let's go ahead and doing this, we'll go over here, and this link is down below. This actually was, as you can see, was written out by somebody. So instead of you having to go under programs and features and selecting everything you need, we went ahead and created an actual script that will go ahead and install it. So you have 4 choices: the all, which is put everything all RSAT has. You have your basics, which is just the AD, DHCP, DNS, group policy, and server manager. You have just the server manager, and then you have the uninstall, so remove all the features that you put on there if you don't want it. You should only install this on a server or a computer that is not to everybody. So do not put this on your accounting, computer. This goes to your tech department or anybody that your administrators that run this and that have Windows 10 installed. If they do not, then you need to go ahead and follow other videos and tutorials on how to install RSAT. So you can see here, only works on 10. Everything else it does not work on. And if you need to install Debian, here's the Debian website. So let's go back here to our dual boot. It's already up. Okay, so now we're going to click on Other. And you can see here it says Debian Server. So you can go ahead and type in Debian Server / and then just type in you can do it this way, or if you like, as you can see here, we can do it that way, because right now it's picking the domain server we want. Now if I want to go into the local, I would go and type in this. So we're good. And then as you can see, I'm greeted with the hi, welcome, we're setting everything up for you, blah blah blah. So we're going to skip this real quickly, and once it gets to desktop, we're ready to go. Okay, so now I'm at the desktop, and if I would have remembered, it went ahead and took away my setup here. That's okay. Let me go ahead and grab those files. Now you can see here, there's my local account, and here's my server account. And there we go. So I logged in as my server admin, because that's the basic default policy for any computer, even Windows. If we don't have it specified, I have to log in at every time. Okay. So now let's get this going here. We're going to run. All right, so this is all good to go. Run with PowerShell. To install any kind of specialized scripts, you have to run a remote signed, unless you went in and changed your policies and group policy and everything, which I can see here is not working, which is fine. Go here to PowerShell. ISE. Run as administrator. Gonna load this up. We're gonna go right to our remote sign so I can add that. Go ahead and run it. And remote scripts are not enabled. And of course they wouldn't be. Why would they be? If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. Oh, because it's not supposed to have that. Okay. And that's it. So now we're going to go ahead, go back to PowerShell and run as an administrator once again, because you have to close out of it for the scripts to be able to run. Okay. Let's go ahead and squeeze this down a little bit. So we went ahead and did our policy change. So CD to back out. All right. Now we have to go to CD users. Now in my case, it's going to be VMware, VM advisor .debian server. Then we're going to go into the desktop. Check the desktop. As you can see, everything that we need is on there. So what I went ahead and did was I just made a quick grab like this, and I just want the basic install. So you should type exactly as you can see right there in, and press enter. And this is going to take a while. So I'm going to go ahead, pause the video, and come back once it's all ready to go. As I was saying before, all this is doing is it's just kind of skipping from me having to go into here. Where is it? Oh, apps, optional. Adding a feature. and then going through all this in here to get your RSAT, and then downloading everything through additional features. And not sure which one you need, which one you might need. So like I said, so this one kind of takes care of it all for you. And this doesn't only have to work on Linux servers. It will work on Windows servers too. So if you want to install this on your, like I said, your admin computer, and to be able to link to all the servers, RSAT will work with Windows servers obviously as well. But I don't want to sit here doing this. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, come back once it's all done, and yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, so if you went ahead and did what we did, once the script is done, you will see everything you see right here on the screen. So your DHCP tools, DNS, group policy, server manager, everything's all done. As long as everything says true and false and there's no errors or any red screens freaking out, you did it correctly. So we'll close out of that. So now we'll go over here to administrative tools and look at this. Went ahead and added everything we need. So you have your group policy manager, your DNS, your DHCP, your Active Directory. So right here, Active Directory users and computers. We're going to go to that first because that's the main spot we're going to be with this server. Once you open it, you'll be greeted with the screen you see here. And look, it has already found our server, or domain technically. Click on our users. And as you can see here, we have our users, found our domain controller, the computers that are hooked up to it. So this is very similar to if you were using a Windows-based computer. So we click on VM Advisor. You can see here my user login, Debian server, VM Advisor. Can't do anything with the passwords, can't do anything when I need to. So we're all good. To do changes, obviously you have to log in as an administrator or create a user with administrator properties. Obviously, I'm just a domain user. So I can't actually be that. I can add myself to admin to change everything so I'm able to make all my changes locally and so on. And the other thing you're probably looking into would be your DC server. Alright, and then as you can see here, here's our Debian server lookups. Here's our statics, here's everything here. So you will have to add this one obviously to it, but this will be your DNS server you need. And then from here you can go ahead and add your forwarders, check everything like that you need. Event loggings, monitoring if you want to monitor against queries. So everything you would normally do, like I said, on a Windows server. And everything like that. So yeah, but this is pretty much everything we'll need. So we installed the domain server on Debian 10. We installed Active Directory, DNS, tested everything, connected to our Windows computer. So the way I look at this is we are very successful. Yeah, so at this right here, I think we're all ready to go. As you can see, we've done everything we need to do. Our Windows thing is connected to it, so we're all good. So hopefully this video helps somebody a little bit more detailed. I do have a video that doesn't have any commentary about how to do this, so it's obviously a lot quicker. But some people like to have the commentary. They want to know exactly what they're typing in or what everything is, or if they have a problem with something, it's not like, oh good, he just kept on ripping through the whole video. It's only 10 minutes long, which is great, but I'm now having errors and I have no idea what to do. So that's why I usually make these longer commentary videos, try and do step by step with everything here, and how to pretty much do the install from start to finish. So I hope you liked the video. I will be doing a video about how to connect our Linux Mint or Linux to our domain controller in another video. Again, try to keep these videos as short as possible. So like, subscribe, check out my other videos. I got videos to show you how to install Windows, Linux, ESXi, Mac, just about everything. I just kind of do a video, figure out what operating system I want to work with today, and just make a video of it. I got a video on there for Raspbian. SteamOS is going up there, even though nobody uses SteamOS anymore. I also have a few oddball ones like the original Ubuntu, the betas of Windows XP in 2000. So yeah, it's a little crazy here with everything we do on these channels. Really nothing, no rhyme or reason. Also, don't forget to check out our pfSense videos that I'm making. I made a complete lab based off of pfSense appliance, the SG-3100, in a VM environment, so you're able to actually test everything before you deploy it. So you can see how your firewalls are going to work, your system's going to work, DHCPs, everything, so on, before you actually copy the config file over and do everything set up that way. So it's a pretty interesting video setup. It's a multi-part setup and everything, so it's going to be pretty cool. So I hope everybody has a great day, and I guess I'll check you guys out in the next video. Again, the next video will more likely be sometime at the end of the week about how to install, like I said, Linux to an Active Directory, which is honestly almost the same as doing the way we just did it now, just I think backwards, as they put it. So yeah, thank you guys, and I hope everybody has a good day. So see you next time.